This is a quote from Lauren Cordain, who wrote probably the first book on paleo nutrition, or the first one in our era at the moment. And it says, generally, in most parts of the world, whenever cereal-based diets were first adopted as a staple food, replacing the primarily animal-based diets of hunter-gatherers, there was a characteristic reduction in stature, an increase in infant mortality, a reduction in lifespan, and increased incidence of infectious diseases. Cereal grains are packed full of anti-nutrients, things like gluten, things that cause our body major dysfunction. And in terms of physiological stress, they're keeping us in a state of inflammation. We're not going to be able to perform at our best if we're taking in a lot of this kind of stuff. Now, some of us may have metabolisms which can deal with this more efficiently than others. However, you're still not providing your body with the best energy if you're regularly taking on foods like that. Modern fats, vegetable oils are to be avoided. That includes margarine, fat, shortening, anything that's been tampered with. Hydrogenated fats, we've been through some ridiculous chemical process to produce that fat, is not going to be of any help to your physiology whatsoever. So avoid oils made from vegetables, grains, and seeds. There are exceptions. Unrefined virgin coconut oil and olive oil are acceptable fats. I'd rather the coconut oil because it's a saturated fat rather than the olive oil. But both are acceptable and aren't going to cause dysfunction to our bodies. Saturated fats, I'm just going to pop this up here quickly. Have been maligned by science, by the media for a long time now. They are not an issue. About 70% of my diet is saturated fat. 60 to 70% is saturated fat, then protein, and then carbohydrate. The brain, the most creative organ, the thing that separates us from the rest of evolution, the rest of the animals on the planet, is 50% saturated fat. Our nervous systems cannot function efficiently without saturated fats. It's rich in the crucial vitamins A, D, and K2, which most people living nowadays do not get enough of. And there's no need to supplement with those, with the exception of D, because we get it from sunlight typically, and most of us don't get enough sunlight, particularly in the northern hemisphere, in the UK where we are. We can only produce vitamin D from the sun in about 3 months of the year, if we're lucky. Well, if you're experiencing the British summertime at the moment, you'll know that getting vitamin D in is not the easiest thing. The guys who live over in California, you know, you're a lot luckier with that. Just an interesting stat from a bit of research that was produced is that consumers of margarine have twice the incidence of heart disease compared to butter eaters. Cholesterol, again, has been maligned by science. It actually helps boost our immunity to infectious diseases. It increases the strength of the intestinal wall, and it aids in the regulation of blood sugar and systemic inflammation. Systemic inflammation, from a nutritional perspective, is probably the greatest stressor on the system from the anti-nutrients that we're taking in the typically modern diet. And the liver produces around about 1,200 milligrams of cholesterol every day. If we eat more cholesterol in our foodstuffs, it will reduce fat. If we eat less, it will increase it. So whether you like it or not, there is going to be cholesterol floating around your system the whole time, and it's a very protective steroid. Some more research that was fascinating as I was writing the book is that older people with high cholesterol levels outlive those with low cholesterol levels in their blood. And people with low cholesterol are twice as likely to have a heart attack when compared with people with high cholesterol readings. It's kind of a reverse of what many of us have been taught over the years. Omega-6 and 3 are the polyunsaturated fats. Typically, we're getting in a lot of omega-6 and not enough omega-3. 6 comes from those oils I was mentioning to look to avoid, which are the vegetable, grain, and seed oils, oily fish, and meat raised on pasture. So beef, lamb, etc., raised on pasture provides us with omega-3. There are some of the problems. Again, that's systemic inflammation, blood thickening, increased risk of chronic diseases, risk of cardiovascular disease. All of those are primarily attributable to an excess of omega-6. We need some omega-6 in our diet, but it needs to be in balance with the omega-3. And the simple way to do that is to eliminate vegetable, grain, and seed oils, artificial and man-made trans fats, which are in any prepackaged meals. They're always or likely to have those in, and excess carbohydrates. And then if you consume meat, pastured or organic eggs, and oily fish once or twice a week, you're going to be providing your body with, in all likelihood, a decent amount of omega-3. The one diet, do eat protein and fat. So that comes from the animal sources primarily, which are the meats. Anything is good in terms of meat. The better it's been raised and reared, the more organically it's been raised and reared, or at least free range, the better it is because of the profile of the fats in the meat. But if you're on a budget, the best options to stick with if you are on a budget and you can't afford organic and free range is to go with beef or lamb, because the fats in beef or lamb are not so affected by an unhealthy upbringing of the animal. Vegetables and salad, fine. Healthy fats we've talked about in a little bit more detail. And healthy snacks, if you're okay with lactose, if you're okay with dairy proteins, cheeses are fine. Whole full fat cream, coconut milk, absolutely fine. Fruits in moderation. I'd say if you're looking to lose weight, hold your fruit consumption down to about 1 piece of fruit a day. If you're happy with your weight, that can go up 2-3 pieces a day. High quality cured meats, continental sausages and cold sliced meats are beneficial snacks. Rather than having to go to that sandwich bar for lunchtime, you can grab some salami, something of that nature. And nuts are okay, don't go overboard on them. But as a quick snack, a handful of nuts can be beneficial too. And to avoid grains, sugars and sweeteners, the unhealthy fats, any altered fat level product, so anything that's semi-skimmed, anything that's been tampered with and moved away from nature, I would say avoid. Fruit juices, they're just sugar water essentially. Junk food is an obvious one. Processed meat where it's been filled out with sugars or carbohydrates needs to be avoided as best you can. And high carbohydrate alcoholic drinks. Alcoholic drinks that work, red, white wine, and the spirits are far better, depending on the mixer you use with the spirits. If you can take this information away today and eat like this 80% of the time, you're going to put yourself in a really good place.